Welcome to another exciting episode of the Gain Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from senior leaders in hospitality, travel, tourism, and technology. So here we have Pierre-Camille Hamana, PC, and you are not a hotelier. You are the founder and CEO of Hospitable, which focuses on the short-term rental market, STRs. And you're here with us to tell us everything that hotels are doing wrong in their tech stack and all the ways that short-term rentals are better and are going to dominate the future of travel.
Thank you. Thank you very much for Adam. I'm not here to give any lesson. I'm here also to be educated about the daily life of an hotel. I'm the neighbor next door who is indeed helping short-term rental host running their operations in a way that is sustainable, compliant, and also, scalable and bringing plenty of joy to guests and also together.
Right. Yeah, you took it out of my mouth there to start off with the elevator pitch. And to pull out one word from what you said there is the term scalable. Because before we started recording, we were talking about the emergence of STRs as a sector of accommodations versus hotels that have a 100-year head start, but also the legacy of that 100 years in terms of working with existing tech stacks and existing distribution. But STR has basically leapfrogged hospitality in a lot of ways because it's newer.
Yeah, I think that's kind of right. So just to basically go a little bit deeper onto what Hospitable is doing, we're a super application for the short-term rental industry. We started in 2016 as a messaging automation tool for Airbnb hosts, and now we are indeed a full property management platform for that industry. That means the channel management, that means the AI-powered guest messaging, that includes the dynamic pricing, that includes direct booking websites, the smart locks integrations, the team management, the operations management, the rental agreement, etc., including now one of our most recent release, which is an MCP server that allows you to connect your AI agent to your property management software. You were talking about scalability. In 2025 alone, our customers together, Hospitable hosts, have earned $5.2 billion in revenue. And the core thesis of our product is simple. Running a short-term rental should not be a full-time job because our customers probably have one already. We want to automate everything that we can on the guest communication and operations side so that hosts can focus on growing their business or, frankly, be living their lives. This is, I think that's indeed a great comparison between the hotel industry, and indeed it's a vulnerable industry that I think short-term rentals would not be there if it was not for it in the first place. But indeed, there was a challenge on the technology side. Frankly, when Hospitable started in 2016, there was not a great set of APIs to be integrating with. It was a little bit of, I would say, gray hat type of hacking between different booking platforms, not exactly the level of professionalization that we now have. But the opportunity that it created is that we're able to start from a really good territory with recent technologies that were a lot more, I want to say, bulletproof to scale, because it was already started as a scaled operation from day one when it was launched. So that does mean, I think, for short-term rentals, there's probably if an hotelier and a short-term rental host were comparing the software, I have a feeling that the attention to the user experience is going to be a lot better to the user on the short-term rental host side. I believe that there's going to be more developments on the integration, on the distribution of channels. I think there will also be a lot more recent developments, especially leveraging AI, that basically now are burgeoning left and right in the industry. But I think to put that into comparison, you could put one hotelier against 10 short-term rental hosts, and you'd know that hotelier will have a software, whereas it's not guaranteed, far from that, on the short-term rental host side. In preparing for that fantastic podcast, I wanted to ask basically about the penetration of property management software channel managers in hotels. Basically is 80%, and I believe it's almost unheard of to be running a scaled operation across a certain number of keys to basically not have that. The penetration rate of property management software in short-term rentals is basically 34%. you have 65% of listings in the US, which obviously is the market where there would be a greater willingness to pay, that do not have any software operation connected. And that has consequences obviously on distribution. That means hosts tend to be listed on just one channel and not grow past it, which means they're leaving money on the table. And they probably cause a lot more work for their operation than just using a software for themselves.
Yeah, I mean that sort of speaks that difference. So, north of 80%, let's say, of hotels have a channel manager to distribute across the map, but only 35, let's say under 35% are using any sort of software. And it's all, whether they're listing on Airbnb or Vrbo, it's all still paper and pen behind the scenes or Excel. But a disconnected flat file in either case. And that speaks to not only how much service addressable market you have left for your platform, but also what happens when that 35% who have a proper platform to distribute and to automate all of their operations goes to that 80%. And what does that mean in terms of the service that you're able to deliver for a STR versus a hotel, and then the ability to compete even better?
Yeah, and I think to go back on a bit on something, but one of the challenges that is really coming in the short-term rental industry is always that of professionalization, and I believe software obviously has a very meaningful place in that opportunity. It's not obviously the case for hotels. You don't have conferences where you talk about how do we professionalize the hotel industry. Do you guys have fantastic operations and budgets and training to create it? That's absolutely, it has to be rebuilt from the ground up for when it comes to short-term rental hosts in particular. So what happens whenever those 35% become the 80%, basically becomes a rule? That's a very interesting theory that we obviously work on at Hospitable ourselves. I'm going to go and share a few more initiatives on that. But I think the very first thing that I think would be very beneficial for everybody and hosts in particular is the fact that it increases the competitiveness between booking platforms. In short-term rentals, this used to be, there was one particular player, that is now, we're going to call them the incumbent, that's being attacked with multiple parties, but not necessarily with a lot of intention. That has changed. In 2026, Airbnb is being really attacked and is being challenged in all its markets by many other booking platforms, such as Expedia, such as Booking.com. And that's something that we see every day as a property management software and channel manager. And so the fact that now there is this increased competitiveness means that for us, it creates opportunities to be testing different platforms. Now, to be fair, that in some markets, it's Airbnb that is being the dominant player. In other markets, it's Booking.com that is now has very well grown their alternative accommodation segment. And so the property management software is the best place to be leveraging those opportunities. I think in this world, and you were sharing a bit before about the quality of integrations in those industries. What I love to have is obviously I want to call it almost a 51% attack, taking a word from the crypto world. But if there is greater adoption on the supply side by those APIs that the booking platforms are releasing and are developing, and they're actually being leveraged, all of a sudden, those booking platforms are competing on the quality of their integration as well, which I believe will be music to the ears of many of your listeners. But also that means it's no longer something that comes secondary to some development or some teams. It's basically becoming the best way to be distributing your inventory to booking platforms. And I think that's fundamentally a completely different change on the industry. That does mean booking platforms are put on notice. They need to deliver. They are performant booking engines, and they need to deliver the guests that are booking through their platform. That also means greater competitiveness on prices. And then we also have all the benefits for themselves, which is streamlined operations across different booking platforms, the ability to run their own business logic on top of the data buckets that are proprietary to the booking platform, which is basically allowing you to have standardized operations. Yeah, short-term rentals want to have standardized operations. They don't want to have any guest that is falling through the crack of a process, which is why pen and paper is not exactly a process. It's a great way to you need to triple check everything nonetheless, and receive all the message, have all the proper accounting treatment, distribute the money to the owners if you are a property manager, make sure you have access to the property itself, etc., etc. And so that's a great benefit for guests as well, because it means you're going to be dealing with a professional operator, and you're not going to have trip issues. You are going to have access to the property. You're going to know who to ask whenever there's a challenge, and you can just be happy and leave a 5-star review, which is the job.
Yeah. And again, that word scalability, all back to it in terms of helping those, I guess, those mom and pop operators get on the platform, distribute, test out different channels, Expedia, Booking versus just the incumbent. And then, I guess the 51% TAC getting more towards 80. Now you have a full integration of Booking and Expedia's loyalty platforms and their reward incentives as well, where now it creates even more of a dynamic by which regular travelers are incentivized to stay with Booking and Expedia versus booking direct with a hotel, which is sort of my own system thinking to see how the short-term rental increase can impact hotels in a lot of indirect ways, knock-on effects that just create this dynamic competitiveness where hotels really need to understand that this is a force to be reckoned with in a lot of ways. I wanted to pull out one more thread here before we dive into specific features. I'm wondering if you could just unpack your founder story a bit, because you mentioned all these great features that your platform handles all in one. And I'm talking every day with hotel vendors who are basically we're doing a daisy chain to stitch all these features together, and they're promised to be somewhere on the roadmap for the future. It always takes longer than expected. Yet you've done this all on your own, bootstrapped and built it across every single feature in one platform since 2016. So let's start there with your founder story, which in reviewing that and researching it, it actually has a lot in common with Brian Chesky of Airbnb, in that you started Hospitable to solve a personal travel frustration, and then you realized that there were millions of other people that also had that frustration and were willing to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely right. I was a bit surprised you drawing that parallel, but it was indeed something that I fixed for myself. So I've been an Airbnb host in Brussels, in Belgium for several years. I started with a very small operation, just one private room and one couch. I ended actually with that very same operation. It didn't scale very much. The thing, however, is that I grew in depth of services. So what I was offering in the beginning was a very, very basic standard accommodation. But then over time, I offered more of an experience, especially, for example, with a beer tasting experience. Obviously, Belgium is fantastic for its beers. So I wanted to make sure that my guests had a chance to taste a few of them. And every time there was this ding ding from Airbnb in this case, because I needed to, the next guest was asking a question, or there would be a new booking, etc. So there was a lot of back and forth that I needed to do while I was running my show during this biz testing. And I was very frustrated because I need to stop. I need to go back to that guest. I was really feeling the pressure of responding very fast. And I'm just a human being. So that means I was copying messages, pasting them on the Messenger app from the booking platform. And I think 50% of the time I would forget about changing the name of the guest. So that's really a bad first thing. And that was in 2015. Obviously, that back then mail merge was pretty much a very basic feature. And I was really disappointed at the inability to be automating that very simple, very basic, and frankly universal workflow when it comes to working with short-term rentals. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do it for myself. At the time, I wanted to go back to another job, to another project of mine, another startup. But first, I wanted to automate my own Airbnb operation. And I'm 10 years in. I'm still looking forward to go to that next project. But I think I'm pretty much married to that idea now. Um, So yeah, and so it was back in 2016. So really, I think building everything that I could to automate my own operation. It was extremely basic. There was no particular user interface, but I got the fundamentals right, and I realized obviously very quickly that this was so valuable to me that I could go on a vacation and be able to come back at the end of the day without having any network and being able to see reservation coming in and clarity to the guest onto what was offered. So I thought, okay, I'm going to probably make that useful to other people. And there was a very aggressive roadmap and development that has been ongoing. So first year I was indeed on my own. We're now a team of 77 people, fully distributed across the planet. With actually, if you count everybody, that's 150 people that are really waking up every morning to be working for Hospitable. That represents 300,000 listings worldwide in 145 countries. That is, I've noted during 2025, we've hosted the entire population of Australia. That's 27 million guests. We sent 100 million messages last year in 2025. Obviously, I don't have the numbers for 2026. I can assure you those 108 million are peanuts, and we probably are going to be done by July to be reaching exactly the same numbers. And yeah, so that basically has been growing as a very scale operation that has a little bit of market share now on the short-term rental space. Fully remote and indeed fully bootstrapped. So that means I can say that I'm the owner of a property management software. I don't think it's a sentence you get to hear very often. It's not without pain. I can assure you I would not necessarily recommend that. But the path that we've taken is basically we want to be community owned. So we do have investors. They happen to be our customers. We've raised a few millions through their support and of course in addition to their sales. And we also our team is also the very first investor into Hospitable as a company.
Wow, PC, that's a tremendous insight. 144 countries, hundreds of millions of messages, and yeah, bootstrap the whole way, which means that you've had your fair share of sleepless nights and I imagine lots of late night coffee to pump out features on any sort of sprint and all that stuff to keep things going. But the results are there in that it is a holistic platform that can go toe to toe with some of the best hotel tech stacks that are out there that have the scalability to I guess hide behind in terms of amortizing that technology cost. So incredible story. One way to sort of put a pin in that story is to sort of say, well, in hotels, we love to pride ourselves on that one guest where something happened and then it created this heartwarming moment. Do you have any of those heartwarming moments where either within the Hospitable family or some guests that have come to properties that are on your platform where you've created these moments of joy for people?
I would talk more about the hosts themselves because to them, it's really a challenge to basically be able to enjoy their own personal freedom while they invested into those properties and are hosting guests every day. We have two reviews that I always talk about. Reviews on Hospitable as a product. The first one was a mom that went to labor, and so had to give birth, and nobody knew in a way that nobody knew in the guest or the people that are running the operation, for example, the cleaning people, that she would be giving birth. She was able to basically automate the entire operation for her short-term rental without anybody noticing. And I think that's basically it was basically the best thing ever to receive a review like this, because obviously it shows about the level of automation that you are able to offer. At the same time, the actual benefits on the other side is sure free time. That's a great thing. Every software is working to help you automate, do a little bit less work, or to be a bit more productive. No, here we take pride in that particular moment. Another story was our customers are families. They go on vacation themselves, but when they go on vacation, it's also peak time for their properties. So it's always been historically a challenge for them to go on vacation with kids, while the short-term rental basically has to be running itself. And so we had this host that didn't go on vacation for several years, wanted to take vacation on their own, had a backup plan. Unfortunately, that backup plan completely fell through the cracks, didn't work at all. And so there was no backup plan. It basically had to be Hospitable delivering. That person went, I think it was in Portugal. There was not a lot of network available. She would not know if everything was going okay. And then when she was able to go back to Wi-Fi that was working, she realized actually everything was going fine. Like the guests were at check-in, they were able to gain entry, the cleaners were there, or rather, the wrong order. But basically, everything was clean before the check-in, and there was no hiccups. All the guests were asking questions that we were able to answer, and that was already back in 2019. So just to show that it's not about the very latest development in technology about AI, that has already been in the DNA earlier to be able to detect questions and provide those answers well before you heard of an LLM. So those are stories that we're talking about. On the guest side, I think the one that always coming to mind is that host that is having a few properties around the Mayo Clinic in the United States. So obviously, it's a very different type of tourism. You go there with families that are hoping to be receiving treatment, life-changing treatment. There's obviously a very different way of hosting that's a lot more personal. And so she was sharing some anecdotes with me about hosting families with kids that are in terminal stages of cancer that are receiving treatment that might be experimental. And this is a completely different experience, obviously, of hosting, and you cannot listen to that without sobbing or holding on to your kids yourself and wanting to hug them. I feel right now, but that basically shows like, okay, there are some things that you can automate. There are some things that you can, but just here there really need to be specific attention to making the stay as frictionless as possible, as humane in its dimension as possible, because nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to be there. It may be a great thing, but it nonetheless comes with a lot of human challenges to be dealing with that. So, heartwarming is very often what's happening, but it's a real emotional work on those properties.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely feel that from just kids going into the Mayo Clinic is definitely something we have to be treated with care. So to move out of the heartwarming or the human side, and let's go to the tech stack side. So most of our listeners on this podcast are hoteliers or hotel technologists. And I'm wondering, we've talked around it, but I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more directly to some of the key differences in feature requirements for an STR tech stack versus a hotel tech stack. Or, if you can't speak to the hotel side, just tell us some of the things that STRs really need. Certain finance features, accounting, compliance, tying into a cleaning service, etc.
Yeah, there are many similarities and many things that are different between those two adjacent industries. Obviously, the very first challenge is the fact that when you are running a hotel, everything is concentrated. That feels like a dream to a short-term rental host, where everything is absolutely decentralized. You don't have a cabinet to put your stuff. You're gonna have a car, and you're gonna be on that car for a long time between properties if you're a cleaning person in that specific industry. So you need to manage the turnaround time in a way that's significantly more intensive than what I expect it would be the case in an hotel, with every property having its quirks and features. Every guest obviously asking for an early check-in or late check-out. There is no front desk, etc. So there is a lot of focus on the operation side. So basically being able to manage a scaled volume of properties, a scaled portfolio, in a way that satisfies the guest in the best way possible and ensuring the quality of service. That's the part where we've invested a lot, for example, recently. Second dimension, obviously, I think those industries are about the same, but I think there is a greater interest in personalization and authenticity. I think there are amazing hotels, and I've been staying at hotels, of course, but amazing hotels that pay attention to those extra details and having that heartwarming moment, as you're saying. And a short-term rental, the baseline expectation is that you have a unique property, and I'm a unique guest. There is not going to be another guest at that property, and I want to have a unique experience that's going to be tailored to my needs. And so you have probably I'm not going to be sending emails to the hotel in advance of the stay, because I know there is a concert. But in a short-term rental, you're asking all those questions in advance and having about a lot of back and forth. If you are a hobbyist, that's going to be a problem, because you're going to have a full-time job. You're going to answer the back and forth. That's creating what we call the hosting fatigue, and ultimately lead to burnout, where on the time when you would like to rest and have some time with your family, well, actually now you're going to be starting your second or third job. That's going to be hosting those guests and answering all of the questions in advance. So that is very, I think very different. The other features, I think smart locks were fantastic for the short-term rental industry. I think when I started in 2016, that didn't exist, at the same penetration as we have now. Now, every short-term rental, especially in the US, is having the appropriate investment in recent modern technology. There was even a shortage 2 years ago where you could not buy a certain brand of smart locks. It was really a challenge. Now that's over. So that allows us to be having last minute bookings, where you can have a booking at 2:00 for the same day, and you don't have to be messing with the back office of that smart lock provider to create the code manually. That the property manual software can now create those automatically for the time set, it communicating it at the right moment. And that basically means nobody's leaving money on the table with those last minute bookings. Thermostat. That is a very important thing, I believe, for short-term rentals. Imagine a big villa with several bedrooms. The host is checking out with the AC blasting. There will be obviously a cleaning person coming hours later. That might enjoy that. But we've invested quite a bit of time to make sure that we have the technology to support integration with those thermostats, and ensuring that, first of all, the property is at the right temperature by the time the guest is checking in, neither too warm nor too cold, but also saving energy when it's outside of the guest stay. So no problem when the guest is staying, we can enforce some boundaries, but we are also able to make sure that there is not like a lot of energy that's being burnt right there. It's both sustainable, but it's also a major saving for operators in dealing with that. I think you also have rental agreements. The regulatory landscape of an hotel is special, but in the case of a short-term rental, you might be dealing with an homeowner association that is going to grant a rental agreement, that's going to force an ID verification, that may require some communication on a registry, that may actually charge fees of their own. So that's a rental agreement that needs to be signed in advance before getting the check-in instructions. You're dealing with all the security things. Now, whenever you go to a hotel, pick the card, make sure there's an authorization charge on it. All of that is fully expected. There is a bit of reluctance in doing that on the short-term rentals, but you need to have the tools: security deposit, damage waivers, damage protection insurance, owner's insurance that's going to be covering, obviously, the risk of hosting guests commercially. But what we will be taking a lot of work, and we'll be spending a lot of time on fixing this, like a lot of hosts that we believe are misinsured. So if there was a problem, they could not have a claim because their policy might be voided. You don't have a GDS. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but you basically have every integration has its own quirks. We as the software provider need to educate about our users or what you can do on the platform, what you cannot do on the platform. But that means every integration with a booking platform is bespoke in a way, with many common features that we are able to approximate, so that you don't feel like working on Airbnb is different than working on Booking.com as much as possible. So yeah, those are small, like some of the specificities, I believe, that very big difference. I think on the operation of the rest, so you were mentioning like accounting and finance side, I believe that goes into the territory of the property manager that is running short-term rentals on behalf of its clients, who would be the owners of the property. So there are features that we have at Hospitable, of course, to do the owner statements or the invoices, depending on the flow of funds, and generate the payouts, the transfer of funds between what the property manager has secured, and distributing those funds back to the owner. There is a lot of work that we're doing, obviously, on the tax compliance bit. So we operate a merchant of record where we are the one registering with all the tax jurisdictions where we can, at the local level, at the state level, to be collecting those lodging taxes and sales and use taxes, which seems like it's a fantastic way to innovate, create more taxes, but we are able to register and make it simpler for us to be and stay compliant. I think I'd rather stop the list there.
Yeah.
But that's we can go very deep on any of those.
Well, one way to go deeper on this, but keep it still general, is to say that you have to do tax compliance, any sort of features there, and reporting and integrations, but you're doing that across 145 countries.
I wish that would be true.
Yeah.
Not there yet. That's for now, the tax compliance product is really restricted to the United States, which is where we have today about 75% of our listings.
Okay.
So that's where we're able to offer the greatest impact, but we would love to expand into other jurisdictions. And I think based on market needs, the one we're looking to first is going to be Canada, and then Europe is going to be its own challenge. But we would love to offer that service worldwide over time.
Yeah. I mean, and that will be on you to decide with your development team in terms of what the actual expected value is from putting in all that work. And that's very tough. Yeah. So I'm wondering, you mentioned going back to this talk about integrations, and in essence, you have Hospitable sits at the heart of the hotel operation as the technology side. Then around that, we've mentioned various pieces that plug in. We've mentioned distribution. We've talked about the cleaning integration. We've talked about if there's anything going into the homeowners association, and maybe other messaging platforms as well, if they have going in and out. I'm wondering, just to give people some background so they can research on their own, are you able to name any other companies that you have preferred partnerships and are very important in the STR technology space?
Besides the booking platforms, we do have obviously state-of-the-art integration. So with Airbnb, with Booking.com, and now with Vrbo as well, with Google Vacation Rentals. I think you were talking more about the ancillary service providers, so point solutions. That would be, I think, on the pricing side, on dynamic pricing, revenue management. Obviously, a very big need for the entire industry. So we integrate with Price Labs, which I believe is really the leader in this space beyond pricing, and Wheelhouse being challengers. While we are a challenger ourselves, we offer our solution for dynamic pricing. On the operation side, you have several solutions that might talk to hotel as well. I believe Breezeway and Turno. Turno, I believe, being a leader for everything that's on the operation management and cleaner management. Obviously, a big deal where we also are competing ourselves with our own products. So we are very open. We allow everyone to compete, including ourselves. So yeah, I think those are basically the most significant and most widely adopted types of integrations that our customers are using across the board.
Yeah. And I mention all those other technology pieces because it's one thing for a hotel to put together a tech stack and spread those costs around 100 rooms or 1,000 rooms, however much it's on a per room per month charge. It's a whole other thing for an independent operator who has another job and is raising a family to then decide on a technology stack and also spread those costs around a key count or a unit size of 1 or 2 if they're doing that. So how do you make all these features available while also making the cost reasonable for a single operator, and also doing new feature development, sales, marketing, customer support, everything that goes along with running a business?
While staying bootstrapped.
Yeah.
While not taking any third party money. That's a very good question. I've been trying to find an answer for the past 9 years. Turns out you can do it. So you're right on many things. So first of all, I believe the technology is not a cost. It's really is an investment. Our customers are real estate investors. They do due diligence when they acquire a property. They are going to acquire a property for short-term rental in a jurisdiction where there is a history, where there is a good rate of short-term rentals, where it's seen favorably, where it's not been banned, where there are no restrictions, so they can have leverage and basically expect to have a sustainable operation where they've been looking for cleaners. The biggest risk that I see in some great location is actually that burnout, that hosting fatigue. The fact that while they've done all their research, they may have to shut down that investment early. They may have to move to a long term. They may have to sell the property altogether earlier than they thought because they didn't anticipate the workload that was created on short-term rentals, and at any price point on the real estate investment property. So the arbitrage, especially for those, is what's the price of your hour as you're managing a short-term rental. Our monthly rate, the lowest one that we offer, is at $29. And that includes actually two properties, to $29 for two properties per month. So that is basically, I think, a very democratic rate. If you want to access more features, that basically can start at $59, including, for example, smart locks, etc., always including the first two properties. But that still gets in the way. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in there to win. I see the numbers of the penetration rate of PMS and the technology in this industry, and they're very disappointing. And they've been disappointingly stable. I want to say for the past 10 years, even though there was a lot of investment, the price should not be causing friction. So that's why beginning of April, we actually have released what we call our Essentials plan, which is a zero subscription fee plan where you can use Hospitable indeed. I don't want to say for free, but you have access to all the same integration that we have with booking platforms. You can have a unified inbox. You can have the same calendar to protect you from double bookings. You can have the same guest messaging, etc., etc. I don't want to say free, because it's actually less than free. A lot of PMS that you have in the industry, and I believe that might be the case for yours as well, are really saying that they're in there to earn you more money. There is a premium that you're going to be able to generate if you go with a property management software. But somehow they still charge you per seat. They still charge you per room or per property. Like, no, that doesn't sound fair to me. So we are all in on this. As you grow your revenue, we're going to be increased. We're going to be taking money. So that means whenever you have an early check-in or a late checkout, a pretty universal need that currently is going to be a pain to be charged, to be collecting those funds from the booking platform. Well, we're going to have a take rate. We're going to take care of the compliance. We're going to take care of the chargeback protection, etc. So it's not going to be an empty service. Definitely not. It's packed full of value. But we are going to be generating some fee there. When you have a direct booking, you don't need to pay to have a direct booking website, especially not in 2026. But to secure this transaction, we're going to have a take rate that's going to be a 7 to 10% to basically fund our operation. And the reality of it is that it ends up being a situation where that take rate is less perceived as a cost because it's not money that's leaving your wallet. It's a little bit less money that you're receiving. Now, of course, your audience is particularly familiar with that. It's the battle of the day and every day. But if you want to grow the adoption of technology in a market that is so focused on the long tail as we are in the short-term rentals, you need to deploy, I don't want to say tactics because it has a negative connotation, but you need to basically take the users where they are. And I can completely understand that if you're not been using software, probably the willingness to pay is exactly $0. But if you're able to generate revenue that I would not have been able to generate earlier, then go ahead. You can generate a few dollars on those transactions. And the percentage that I'm mentioning are totally reasonable, considering one, the value delivered, and second, the competition that basically would be from the booking platforms altogether. So that's what we want to do to grow the size of the market and basically gain more have users gain more technology adoption. Hopefully taking them where they are and being democratic.
Yeah, it makes sense. The 7 to 10% for the customer and the market you're dealing with as a business model, a revenue model for Hospitable. One other aspect I wanted to touch upon is, it's one thing for a hotel to have an IT director who can then configure a system and learn it, and then all the PMS companies or ancillary endpoint solutions are all willing to offer training and continuous training. It's a whole other thing on whether it's $30 a month or a rev share model to say we're going to offer one-to-one training to use the system. So what features have you put into Hospitable to, number one, make the platform as intuitive as possible to learn, even though it does everything, which can be daunting to start? And then number two, to offer any sort of one-to-many scalable online university features?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's our challenge, obviously, every day. I think about 40% of the product team and engineering team at Hospitable is basically working exclusively on onboarding at any single point in time. So that means ensuring that gaining engagement on features that are being released. So they don't release new features; they're just here to make sure that those features are well understood, well onboarded across the user base. Um, I think there is a lot of importance of design. It needs to be intuitive. It needs to be modern, so that people that are used to use a booking platform can basically find the same concept whenever they're dealing with a property management software that they don't know. I think so. That's what we invested a lot into, and we're still being praised for. We have many workshops, many live webinars to train in depth on the product, but we do also offer one-on-one onboarding. That's a paid service across several hours and several weeks. To basically guide our users wherever that could be self-managers with one or two properties, or that could be property management teams, guest experience teams, operation teams to be leveraging the features of the product. So we have entire programs to basically educate them about the product and whether they are being pros, whether on software that has been already implemented, or whether they basically are just starting their operation and need guidance on where to start on their own timing, I want to say. But there has been a lot of development and investment, for example, around artificial intelligence, being able to really answer questions as it happens, and more sophisticated product to help you on board on the product itself. So you don't necessarily know where to do something for the first time, then you need to have an answer immediately that guides you or can even do it for you, which is even a better experience. So we have, again, our entire support team is entirely focused on that part. It's really adding an experience that's going to be automated with top of the line AI, that's going to be helping not just answer the questions, but can actually do actions on top of your account. I've not seen another product that basically was supported with the level that we do, with the depth that we do. I wish that would be the case, because the problem that we're dealing with, actually, transparently, is that not many people believe in it. When I hear AI, it's fine. Like, okay, like, dude, you're going cheap on me. I want a human. This is a very important problem that's worthy of a human's attention. We actually have invested to fix. I think right now the team is on 70% of all the volume of support is entirely resolved with a positive signal from the customer by artificial intelligence. And so those are some of the most complex and thorny issues that we may face that are actually going to be resolved by AI that investigates, is able to manipulate the data from the property management software itself.
Yeah, the dawn of AI, you can already see immediate use cases in the FAQ or Q&A, whichever you want to do it, on both the guest side and the customer side for yourself, the user side. And you mentioned AI versus human, and I would say that in these cases where somebody is just expecting a basic answer, convenience always wins. They would rather have that answer delivered by an AI if it can be delivered inside of 3 seconds than having to wait 3 hours for a human to get back to them because they're sleeping, they have a family, etc. On the note of AI and some embedded features, you mentioned at the start your new MCP endpoint. Can you talk about what that is and what types of artificial intelligence tools can now be plugged in, so to speak, directly into Hospitable?
Yeah, that is very interesting. So fundamentally, software is you integrate software via APIs. Okay, everybody, I think your audience believes like I'm a joke, but the an AI agent needs to be able to discover those APIs, and that's what the MCP is doing. It's basically providing a bit of a map of all the APIs that are available and descriptions, so that as you interact with your AI agent or assistant. That can be as simple as your own cloud account. You link the MCP, you authenticate it yourself with your Hospitable account or any other resource account that you want to connect via an MCP. And that means you can now interact with the data from your property management software using English as a programming language. So that, for example, things like as basic as give me the list of the next 10 guests that are going to be checking in that city. It's going to look at the property, it's going to look at the address, going to look at the reservation list of reservations, the check-in date, and then being able to return to you with that list immediately. Now, that's a simplistic usage case. Since the release of our MCP server to our users, I think they grasp really the potential that it could bring to them. So we've had many users vibe coding applications on top of Hospitable. So like really long tail feature requests that would be like a very strong pacing analysis specific to the industry with awareness of the events, etc. Great, but they're able to do it independently. We have some that have rebuilt their own AI messaging products with the way that they wanted to, with all the data that they have in data that maybe third parties to Hospitable. So still leveraging Hospitable infrastructure, the fact that the data is coming from the booking platform and being able to manipulate it the way they see fit, but basically directly with their own custom needs. That basically no possible software developer could possibly anticipate. And doing so, obviously, at a cost that is, I don't want to say nothing, but it's the cost of your cloud subscription, the cost of the token, which is orders of magnitude lower than it would be for a software company to use those tokens ourselves, to be coding this, to be supporting it, to be explaining what it is. So I think I'm very excited about those MCP, and we basically have wanted to. We've created, for example, a build-a-thon to promote the usage of the MCP so that users can inspire others onto what they can do with an MCP, and we're going to distribute a little bit of a stock actually into those the winners of that competition.
Wow, that's quite something. You're going to give some stock options for that. That's pretty cool.
Stock directly, no option, just euros and
Oh wow,
RSU
okay.
for a good app. Yeah.
Okay, so just to unpack that a little bit further, because the first simple feature you said about, okay, Claude or another LLM gets authenticated, and then you're able to interact with Claude and pull data. So that's a read feature. Then one of the biggest concerns with MCPs has not been the read, but it's been the write, insofar as ensuring that any sort of agentic AI does not do something wrong and either leave you exposed for security reasons or rewrite or delete information that's on the core database. So how have you solved for that challenge while still enabling things like vibe coding, which your users maybe are not doing the same degree of testing and QA?
I'm not sure to answer the question
Yeah,
because fundamentally, like, I'm dubious that since December 2025, those are things that really can happen. There are disaster stories. There are cases that have been very chaotic with, I don't know, vibe coding that goes wrong because you leaked your Stripe keys on a public
yeah.
website, or deleted the entire database, lied, and you could not actually get a straight answer. Now the models, the frontier models by whatever provider you use are frankly so great. The orders of magnitude better than what you've experienced in November 2025. And you
Wow.
remember what you may have done in November 2025. So
Yeah.
I'm not believing like there will be something really going wrong with what you're asking to get to delete listings or update with stupid descriptions, etc. So you would have to give the instructions, and you would have pushback, maybe for the equivalent of pushback in an LLM. But basically said, maybe I should not do that. That sounds ridiculous. And this is actually a real action. The agent will have the context that basically is doing something that might be very wrong. So it's good that they are doing some effort. Is that going to be the case 100% of the time? Probably not. But I think it's more often right than not. For the past few weeks, we've not heard of any kind of ill case in this way. Obviously, everyone has an incentive to make that work. It's not something that is funny or you play with. This is business data. You can post a message will you be able to post 1,000 messages that might be inappropriate to the guest? No, because the booking platform will block you. It's not an MCP problem, but the capabilities doesn't translate into actual actions. There's been a lot of scare in the early days, and that was legitimate. I'm not saying relax, but just basically don't go crazy. The AI will do what you say, what you want to do, communicate all the context, so that's able to leverage that. Don't just stick to send a message, etc. Especially if you're doing a task, there's basically go with all the context, the voice, the tone of voice that you want to have. Go with everything that a great human would know. We need to know to do a great message, and I believe strongly we do a much better job with all the context that they might have, and they can gather that context themselves on the right different functions. But on the other part, I think while you can do a lot of those things via MCP, the software is not dead, far from it. I think this is great to see early adopters using MCPs and developing their workflows and vibe coding application. There is also the challenge of any technology, and it takes time. So we are also having our own features to basically that might not have the potential of working across the long tail of needs, but are able to nonetheless get 90% or 95% across without those kind of fears and risks that you elevate. Because, for example, we do have our own AI inbox product that's able to answer questions day in, day out, and press the send button directly. But that's with a risk assessment, with an audit, with different agents that are verifying that we're not saying something that might be inappropriate or a bit too playful. I think in the early days, we were, for example, having questioned about, is the pool heated? And the answer, well, it's yes, you're right, it is sun heated. Well, it's not exactly what I meant, though. Thank you for being a bit funny, but that's way too smart an answer right now. But so now we are gaining quality because the models that have been orders of magnitude better. Including recently, like Anthropic just launched Opus 4.7, which was a state of the art for probably 2 days. Since yesterday, ChatGPT released, OpenAI released the GPT 5.5 model, which I need to try. But on the benchmarks, it's orders of magnitude better already.
Wow, it shows you the context of where it was in November last year to now we're recording on April 24th. So that is, let's say give or take for 5.5 months, and to see it mature that quickly. And then really the laggard is our perception of it in terms of having that outdated way of perceiving it. And, travel does work that way in terms of outdated perceptions about the safety of certain markets, the cleanliness, how people perceive different countries from afar or different destinations. So it's we're mapping a very, very new technology that's progressing very fast onto a piece of technology that moves a little bit slower, which is the human mind. Yeah, I guess to close things out, we've talked a lot about the technology, about Hospitable, but you mentioned this term long tail twice now, in terms both from coding as well as just the long tail of distribution. And one big thing we're seeing with travel overall is that travel is really being nicheified. It's not just about the classical segments of free transient leisure traveler, and then corporate group, and then other type of group, etc. Realistically, we're seeing this whole blend, and people really looking for these niche experiences. So, from your perspective, because you're so close to a lot of the data in the STR market, what are you seeing in terms of these travel niches that are emerging and some of the distribution vehicles that are catering to this?
I see your point. I almost want to say for us as a software provider, it's a classification problem. One of the things I'm thinking that comes to mind directly is basically the list of amenities that were supported by booking platforms has grown probably 10x in the past 2 years. So you want to have very detailed amenities and basically being able to show that this particular property has this thing. And every booking platform wants to offer more details to have this kind of I'm going to say it again, this kind of long tail of needs, and basically making sure. I think it's about meeting customers' expectations really, and being able to market obviously the properties in the best way as they can. I kind of see almost the reverse is also happening. Airbnb made a big update, I think in 2024, 2025, about the launch of Airbnb categories. So you could be able to navigate throughout the inventory of Airbnb and being able to put that into categories. So that basically was, to your point, that you could have very specific listing types, and that was removed. That was removed because no guest is actually looking for a stay in this way. It was actually, no, I need to have the fundamentals need to be there. You need to have a location, a check-in date, a check-out date. You can offer me alternative dates. You can expand the horizon. But actually, that's my freaking problem, and I need to have a solution on this. Nobody cares about whether you want to go to a specific dog-shaped cabin. That might not be relevant to the needs of why you show up on Airbnb. So that's the counterpoint. But to you, I'm going to add a bit of an argument to your point, which is that now LLM as a way to search, I fix this problem. There is no way that Airbnb will be able to compete. A ChatGPT or Claude that basically would be able to search through the inventories of those third-party platforms and be able to really find specifically the property that may be matching your need, including a property with the character in the way that you see fit. I see really more like with AI, and I'm sure you've been talking about a lot of that on the show, but that's really what does search look like in a universe where the people are going to be looking first at an AI assistant rather than connecting onto Expedia, onto Airbnb, or onto Booking.com to look for their property, because they want to basically, they don't want to be spending a ton of time investigating. In fact, my very first product in that space was focusing on that. Like, is there a product on the guest side? Because you would spend hours looking for the property, you would check at different things, and there was no way to have really an aggregated quick view of this. Those are the 5 listings that I need to check based on my own criteria. That can be very good Wi-Fi, great reviews, etc. There is no way to get that. So, but with the AI agents, you can. The problem, I think, for booking platforms, just as much as it is for hosts or hoteliers, is going to be, how can I show up and being that number one property, not knowing that it's no longer about the law of big numbers of the eyes that are going to be looking at search, impression, etc. But it's basically resonating particularly well with the guest that is going to be your best fit. It's going to be a persona. Everybody's having avatars and personas, especially in the case of short-term rentals. That's crucial because every property is unique. But this is basically what's going to drive it. You need to resonate very well with your top core customer, top potential guest, because you really need to stand out 10 times more, 10 times better, 10 times flashier than the next property. And that basically means you're going to have the same persona showing up at your door, which may be a great thing for us, it may be a great thing for a guest, but is the death of the undifferentiated listings that wants to be there for everybody, that doesn't have character, that is blonde, that doesn't have average reviews, that are not basically going to be shouting out of the rooftop or amazing the property is. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but that's an opportunity for many.
No, I think it explains it perfectly. There are opportunities. You have to have character in some way, but you also have to be flexible for discovery. And as you mentioned with that point about Airbnb removing a feature, is they tried to go too far lower funnel before allowing people at the top of the funnel to then be drilled down.
And I think a lot of that was basically driving. I think the problem of booking platform is that you only use it whenever you need it. And the challenge of the booking platform is obviously to make sure that you come back just to play, just to have fun. You have 5 minutes. Why would you not look at those fantastic looking properties on a paradise island very far away by the sea while you're basically under rain in Brussels? No, you that's great. But the problem is that you also have other devices that are going to be competing for your attention, and that you're not thinking about those booking platforms for that. But they try to get that point with the idea that they're merchandising other features elsewhere.
Yeah, no, but it's a fantastic way to finish off because there's so much happening in the travel space, and it really is about enabling operators to be the best that they can be for their guests, and then from there we are creating this incredibly dynamic global travel world. And Hospitable of course, had a very central role to play in that evolution. So thanks for coming on the show. PC, it's been fantastic. You've shared a lot of wisdom, both for people that are looking to get into the STR space and also for hoteliers to see what they're up against. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Adam, for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.